Hey everybody, it's Austin from Arizona Sulcata. Going to go over today how to and why we soak our hatchlings. Now, to start off, I'm going to hit off with the why, which is probably the most important part. Now, I'll get a lot of people that tell me, well, in the wild, in their natural habitat, they don't get soaked, which is partly true, but also partly false. Again, they'll hit you with a sulcata is a desert tortoise. It doesn't need soaked. It doesn't need all the water. Also false. So let's go ahead and go over that and hit on their natural habitat as well. First off, sulcatas, a much more accurate description of a sulcata is that they are a grassland tortoise. The area that these tortoises come from, they actually get a monsoon season where they'll get heavy rainfall, and that's when these hatchlings start hatching, is in the monsoon season. So the ground gets really wet, it gets moist, the rain comes in, the floods come up, and these tortoises start hatching. So they're used to having very wet conditions as hatchlings. And another thing that we can't mimic here in captivity raising these is these tortoises live underground. So underground in their natural habitat is very humid, where they can soak up that moisture and humidity. And here we have to use all the heat lamps and heaters to keep up the temperature because we can't, regulate the ground temperature like they would in the wild. So all those heat lamps contribute to them getting dehydrated very easily, which is why you really want to be soaking these every single day as hatchlings for 20 to 30 minutes. Now, what's happening as they're soaking? A couple things. Number one, it's just an opportunity for them to get a drink and to hydrate. And the other one is that it allows them to, even just them sitting there not drinking, they're hydrating. Being a reptile, they absorb water through their skin, which keeps them nice and hydrated. I have to tell you, soaking is the number one most important thing in raising a healthy sulcata hatchling. I see it all the time. It's by far the number one cause of death for people is their tortoise becomes dehydrated and it can no longer eat food. So that's the first thing, is their tortoise will stop eating because it doesn't have the hydration, the water in its system to be able to digest its food. So number one, they stop eating, and number two, because they stop eating, they go inactive. So they stop eating, they go inactive, and then they die. And another symptom of that is a lot of times you'll feel that their shell is very soft. If you flip it over, it'll almost look like it's black and discolored or green. And that's from sepsis setting in because they have organ failure. Again, because they're not hydrated, their organs can't function properly. And it's just a really sad story because you'll have all these people telling you don't need to soak. But believe me, you do. Soaking is by far and away the most important thing you can do to raise a healthy hatchling. So now that we've gone over why we do it, let's go over how to. Very simple, and we'll go from there. So for the how-to part of this video on how to soak your tortoises, there's a couple things to go over. Number one is how much water to put in there. It's pretty simple. You don't want them swimming. You want them to be able to just lay there and have their head above water, enough to where they can stick their beaks in, get a drink, and enough to where as they're laying there, they can actually soak up the water. Their skin can soak it up. But you definitely don't want them struggling to keep their head above water, or definitely not swimming or floating or anything like that. Next is you want to make sure the water is warm. You don't want them getting a respiratory infection in cold water or anything like that. The other thing is it will be really beneficial if you have a container such as this that has the straight walls. You don't want a bowl or anything that has that slope, or they will find a way to flip themselves over in the water, which definitely wouldn't be good. So straight wall containers are the best. Also a container to where they can't see out of it. Preferably not a clear container, or else they will just be pacing the whole time trying to get out. But that's it. Pretty self-explanatory on how. But really it's the why that's most important, and that's what we want to focus on. But Yeah, that's it. Just soak daily like this for, as hatchlings, you want to do daily for about 20 to 30 minutes. Now, I recommend that for the first year. And then as a general rule of thumb, what I like to say is, because people want to know how often or how long they have to soak. The adults, they definitely don't need soaked. What I like to say is, as long as you can hold that tortoise with one hand, you can pick it up and grab it with one hand, you should still be soaking. After that full first year, you can go ahead and cut back to about 2 to 3 times a week. But as hatchlings, by far the most important thing you can do for your tortoise is to soak daily. So that's it. That's the why and that's the how to soak your hatchlings. I do this every day, every single day with all of our hatchlings that come in. That's just another thing that separates me from the other guys, is I do those daily soakings religiously to make sure you guys all have nice and happy, healthy tortoises. Yeah, I mean, soaking these guys, when you have just one as a pet, it's definitely manageable. But as a breeder, I can tell you sometimes it takes me up to 6 hours a day to soak these guys, which is why a lot of people will cut corners and not do it when you have all the different tortoises. So it's just another thing that separates us here at Arizona Sulcata, and just an easy how-to video on how to do it, and now you know why we do it. And that's it. If you guys have any questions on soaking or anything else, visit my website at azsulcata.com, or feel free to email me anytime with any questions at azsulcata@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody.